Hello and welcome to 24 Lies Per Second, Guernsey's fortnightly film podcast. This is episode 12 from the Batcave. With me are Claire Muckett.
Hello.
And Russ Calloway.
Hi.
And this week we'll be reviewing Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises and Disney's Edgar Rice Burroughs adaptation, John Carter. First up is The Dark Knight Rises. Christopher Nolan is back to finish his Batman trilogy, and this time around the Bat faces the fundamentalist villain Bane, who plans to raze Gotham City to the ground again. Here's the trailer.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
You are as precious to me as you were to your own mother and father. I swore to them that I would protect you, and I haven't.
The twilight's last gleam.
The mayor's gonna dump him in the spring. Really?
Mm-hmm.
But he's a hero, a war hero. This is peacetime.
You think this can last? There's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne. You and your friends better batten down the hatches. Because when it hits, you're all gonna wonder how you ever thought you could live so large and leave so little for the rest of us.
What does that mean?
Rise.
When Gotham is ashes, you have my permission to die.
So the question is whether to spoil or not, and we know that many people will be waiting to see this film. So Russ, please could you start us off with a quick non-spoiler review?
Yeah, certainly can. It's quite a scatterbrained approach. I haven't quite formulated all my ideas into a kind of coherent thing. There's a lot to go through, especially when you take out the whole spoiler thing. But anyway, I mean, when I kind of walked out of the cinema after seeing it, it did feel like the most epic movie ever. Like it's so heavy and so kind of full of weight was what I kept. There's the word I kept writing a lot when I was kind of trying to put all my thoughts together, was just kind of the sheer weight of it, and that's a real positive, for what it basically is or what it should be. I've kind of found that was a kind of really interesting thing. I love the fact that it didn't spend the first hour or so setting everyone up, in terms of let's do loads of backstory and let's kind of really delve into all these characters and see what they do. It kind of, it kicks off pretty much straight off. It introduces some characters that you don't know yet, but it doesn't really explain who they are and really what they're even trying to achieve. It just kind of kicks straight off. And I'm not ashamed to say that for some parts of the film, I didn't quite know what was going on. It's quite a difficult film to follow, but I think one thing Christopher Nolan's always been really good at is he ties it all up in a good way, and in narratives always come to resolutions, and so it kind of works quite well that way. I love the timeline of it. This isn't a film that happens over 24 hours. I mean, I think the gap between the second one and this one is supposed to be like 8 or so years. And yet this film itself takes place over at least a month, maybe even longer, I mean, in terms of what's going on now, not looking at kind of flashbacks and things, But so that's quite refreshing, that it takes its time and it's willing to kind of... Because I always find it hard when things are supposed to happen straight away, then it escalates straight away, and then it's resolved. This is kind of given that time to live and breathe, and like I say before, adds to that weight that I was kind of talking about before. I also enjoyed it because it looking at all three films, they're a trilogy in the, kind of the truest sense of the word. In that they're not just three separate films based around the same character. They're a whole story, and it's kind of. I mean, you just wonder whether they knew when they were doing the first one that this kind of through line was going to be here, because the way it all just does link into each other is seamless, and that was really impressive, and just helps to really get you involved in it, because you feel that you're being rewarded for watching those two previous films and kind of getting involved with this one as well. I mean, I know I said to you, Winter, I think it's a smart film. It's a really clever, serious film, and listening to kind of something that Mark Kermode said after I watched it, kind of went back and listened to a few things that he said on their kind of podcast, and he said that it's a film that's made by a director who thinks that his audience is as clever as he is. And so it's not pandering, it's not simple. It's talking about big ideas and big concepts, and it's not just kind of saying, here's a good guy, here's a bad guy, let's thrash it out and kind of and see them off at the end. And I think that to me is the film's biggest, what it should be applauded for the most. It's got a lot of real world aspects in there, which I'm sure we'll be able to talk about a bit more in detail when we talk about kind of spoilers. But I mean, I don't think you're not giving anything away to talk about how it touches on war on terror and Patriot Act and even kind of modern kind of financial crisis kind of within there as well. And the fact that Chris Nolan's able to talk about all those things without for me turning it into kind of a bandstanding political commentary. I think he's got elements in there where he is making comments, talking about them, but that doesn't kind of overarch the whole narrative of the film. And by doing it, he's able to do what he's done with all the films, and that's this one even more so, bring that comic book character and comic book story into the real world. And I think making a trilogy of comic book movies about a man dressed as a bat, and if you can do that and make it feel real, and not just real but also important, then I think you're onto a winner. So
yeah,
I loved it for those reasons, and then it's also got some crazy action. It looks brilliant in 2D, and not in 3D. And I mean, he's the man at the top of his game, and I have no idea where he's going to go from here, but I'm sure it'll be pretty good.
I mean, I've got to say, I agree with you. I thought it's a very brainy film, and it's very smart in a way that a lot of films aren't smart. A lot of films are smart or think they're smart because they're kind of twisty and turny, but this has some really big ideas running through it. I'd sort of venture that it's got ideas as big as the Watchmen film, which for me is the best sort of superhero film at the moment. I'd say it's a film that deals with some massive issues. It deals with some really quite sort of contentious issues, but I'm sure we'll get to that in a moment. And it's longer than The Dark Knight, which is a film that I don't particularly like, but it seems like a shorter film because it's got a very clear through line. I mean, there's a lot going on, but it's got this sort of central thrust to it.
Yeah.
And the action, I mean, there's great gadgets in it. It's very much what I liked about it is it did all that, but it's still like Batman Begins. It's a comic film. It's a sort of a comic book sensibility to it. So yeah, it's got some sort of real world sort of notions to it, but still within that idea of this kind of sort of separate kind of world to our world. So it's not trying to be as serious as The Dark Knight was, I don't think, but it's bigger, and I certainly didn't expect it to be as epic as it was. Claire, what did you think of it?
I totally agree. I didn't expect it to be as epic as it was. I mean, I'm a massive Nolan fan anyway. Inception just was mind-blowing. A lot of the cast from Inception are in this film. And sometimes I think, oh gosh, not again, not the same cast. I was super excited about this cast because there's some of my favourite current actors in there. What surprised me about this film the most, I think, was how much screen time Batman had. Because if I don't want to obviously give too much away at the moment, but with most superhero films, they take the hierarchy of the screen time. This one was pulled back, and there was other themes going on, and it was so rich in character development that not once did I think, when's he coming back on, or whatever. You just don't realise it until afterwards. I started thinking, actually, he didn't have that much screen time because there was just so much more story to it. As I said, rich characters, fantastic villains in there, and absolutely outstanding heroes. So yeah, that for me it was my favourite film this year so far.
And I think, I mean, one of the things I quite liked about it was just the visual nature of it. I mean, there are some action scenes in it. There are scenes of explosions and stuff, and they're fantastic. They're really kind of, they get the pulse going. I mean, just the action is sort of epic as well as a story. I just found the one part in particular, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a minute, it's just a devastating minute of things blowing up.
Yeah.
And that Nolan can marshal those sorts of bits and pieces and tie it into such a smart storyline and such a smart theme again. Because I think, like Batman Begins, this is a film that's a lot about fear. Whereas the sort of the middle one wandered away from that a bit. But God, there is a case for saying you could go and enjoy this and essentially ignore the story and just enjoy stuff blowing up and people being punched in the face, and it works really well. I think the action's a lot better in this film than it has been. I think sort of the choreography of stuff is a lot better than it was previously, and I think that's probably, this is going to sound really douchey, but something Nolan's learnt doing something as complicated as Inception with those set pieces. I thought it was fantastic. I would recommend this film to anyone who likes intelligent cinema, anyone who likes comic book cinema. But I mean, we were chatting about it just before we started recording, and it's not the Avengers. It's sort of like the polar opposite of the Avengers. But I mean, both. I mean, I think it's a better film than the Avengers, but the Avengers is brilliant.
It's great.
The Avengers
exactly.
was a really good movie. You know, I mean, should we move into like spoiler?
I think we should.
Territory.
Yes.
I mean, okay, so we're going to have some spoilers coming up, so we'll pop on some music for a couple of seconds, and if you don't want to listen to spoilers, just click the link below and skip to our, our tremendous review, no doubt, of John Carter. So, spoiler-wise then...
Yeah, loads happened.
I've got to say, the most satisfying thing about this film was the Joseph Gordon-Levitt sort of storyline running throughout it. He essentially plays this police officer who's lived in a boys' home. He's been orphaned, and Batman's his hero, and he's Robin, essentially.
Robin.
To my mind, by the end, he's going to be Batman.
Well, that's exactly that's exactly
fantastic.
What I thought. I was like watching it, thinking, right, okay, this is all part of Nolan's master plan, and he is going to leave the franchise, and that's fine. But he is going to leave them with a fantastic Batman. He's going to. Leave. I thought he's. So another massive spoiler. I thought he was going to kill off Christian Bale. He was going to go.
Yeah.
If you watch the film, you'll know, unless you're talking in stupid ambiguities that we've decided are rubbish. Yeah. He is not dead at the end of this film. But that's what I was thinking was going to happen. I was thinking that Nolan's going to kill Bale off, and there's Joseph Gordon-Levitt going to walk in and become the new Batman. And then at the end, when it's revealed that his name's Robin, I'm like, oh, okay, well, what's going to happen there? Because is he going to go off and do something in that tangent, or is he going to carry on and just use that character in a slightly different way and kind of take it there? So yeah, it was strange to have that kind of cliffhanger at the end of this film, expecting it to be totally complete and finished and kind of died in the wall kind of thing. But
I started to have inclination about it when he said that he didn't know what he wanted to do anymore, and he didn't want anything to do with the police and stuff, and he didn't know where he was going. I was kind of thinking, hold on a second, something's happening, because his the way that they were talking about it, but basically Batman was saying, anyone can be me. It's not just me. He's not a superhero. He's a vigilante. Anyone can do what I'm doing, and I think it was such a massive message of hope for people when people like this Gordon's character. That it was just such a nice way to bring it to a close. Is that it's anything's possible kind of thing.
And what I quite liked about it, and the way it ended, was that we're now left with a Batman who's essentially a bit more like someone like Captain America, who does good because you should do good.
Yeah, well, and
it's a really different character, and I was sat there thinking, I really want to see that.
Yeah, because you think he's not going to have the money, he's not going to have the resources. He's going to be a totally different take on it. I mean, maybe that's why. I mean, you've got to imagine that Warner Brothers have got to be in on this. It's got to be part of a plan, because I can't imagine they would let him I can't imagine they'd let him finish a film like that and then just piss that away and just be like, right, off we go. And I can't imagine Joseph Gordon-Levitt would agree to do that and then not have some kind of deal in place. You know, it's really strange to end it like that and not think that that's then going to be taken on. Because, I don't know, it might not be. But you'd think it would. You'd think it would kind of carry on. I mean, I wanted to just go back to what Claire said in the non-spoiler review about how little screen time Batman's got, and I thought that as well. For quite a large part of the second half of the film, he's just not on screen. He's just cutting back to when he's in the prison and kind of doing his thing in there. And I thought, as well as that, they're doing away with Alfred. Like halfway through,
didn't he?
He's just gone. He quits and he goes, and you're like, that's really brave. And I thought, because he did get quite a lot of time in the first half, he delivers a couple of meaty monologues. And kind of, gets his acting in more than you'd normally see. And then to just sack him off. You've got these two pivotal characters of this film, and they're both kind of not around. It's just really with that kind of braveness of faith in the other characters. And I think the person who gained most from that was Joseph Gordon-Levitt, because there was a lot more to do with him and bringing him to the fore and his acting around Gary Oldman and so on and so forth, and kind of going through that. So it was a good balance in a way, because I think you could you've got 3 films and you've seen a lot of Batman, and maybe you don't need to see as much of him as you kind of think you do, and so it did that balance well of feeding in what you expected, but also giving you something new, and then obviously setting up for whatever happens next as well.
Yeah, I mean, sort of on a similar note, I thought sort of the least satisfying thing about the film was Matthew Modine's character.
Yeah,
who was sort of this police captain who was obsessed with Batman, but I wish they'd given him a bit more of a turnaround, a bit more of a journey in that respect. And it wasn't. I think the characters are good. I think it's a good idea. I just wish they'd done that little bit more. Maybe made the film 2 minutes longer just to give that make that character a bit more resonant. He should become Gordon. Then that would have mirrored quite nicely if he then sort of turned to sort of the way Gordon looks at things, which is a bit suspect. And it's what I quite like about these Batman films is they're so ambiguous. I mean, it's so staggeringly right wing. The whole Batman concept, but also this film. It's like someone's asked Michelle Buckman or Mitt Romney what would happen if the Occupy movement took off, and they'd say, "Oh, it would be. This is what it would be. It would be some
chaos
kind of
and
Soviet-style nastiness." And which is why I found it really interesting that in when they were interviewing Nolan on the Kermode review, he said one of the films he made him watch was Dr. Zhivago, which is about how these intellectual, lofty ideas are all well and good, but they just don't ever bloody work, because it always leads to,
mob rule,
the gulags and Pol Pot and such. And Bat itself sort of, I like the way he took it so seriously, and then he introduced this sort of almost like Jonathan Swift style moment of the Scarecrow sat atop a mountain of books and desks, judging it. It was like something out of a Gerald Schaff cartoon or something. It looked like a political cartoon.
Yeah. It did. It was just the status had changed around, and I thought that visually it just worked.
Oh, fantastic.
Just whack him in a chair and then
pulling the bankers up before. It was like as simple as that. It was like wish fulfillment. All of a sudden, you're pulling bankers up in front of this crazy guy. And he's going, no. It's like death or
Exhale.
There's the classic joke, isn't there, with death or Mau Mau, and it's death.
Oh
death by Mau Mau.
Yeah,
and that's what it is.
Yeah.
And then you're going, that's pretty funny. But I thought that worked really well as well.
But I mean, with the Selena Kyle character, she very explicitly says, "How did you think you'd get away with it, living so large for so long when so many people have nothing?" And it's really quite potent with
what's happening,
what people have been saying. But it really takes. But sort of amidst all that, they've got this idea. Nolan still gets in this idea that, this is, it's maybe wrong just to drag people down just for being rich and stuff, but you've got this sort of little side bit with this boys' home that's failing because so Batman's Bruce Wayne
not
is so
making
rich,
a profit.
He just can't be bothered to make sure his company's working anymore. And so it's got the social repercussions. It's got that little bit of like, oh no, you've got to be responsible with it as well. But I loved it. I just really like films that take, even if I don't agree with them, Like, I love films that take a really clear
stand
kind of
somewhere,
political stance, which is why I love Red Dawn, which is just a ludicrous film, but brilliant, absolutely fantastic.
I mean, I mean, you talk about Celia Kyle, with Anne Hathaway. I mean, that character has no backstory.
No,
there's none. There's no flashback. There's no how did she become this thief, which you would normally expect, but the film would have been 3.5 hours, and you'd got really bored, and you don't need it. It's more exciting that she can just do this stuff. And,
it's her mystery. It's part of her character. It's part of Catwoman.
Yeah,
it's the mystery behind her, because the way she was like, I like you, I don't like you, I don't know what, I'm going to do what I want to do. Am I with the baddies? There's so many things. She was in between everything. And I just really liked the way that she wove the story. She was kind of the thread that linked everything together and got him back. And I just felt, I mean, if I can talk about the females in this film, the one thing that I was really frustrated about this film was the fact that at the end, when Marion Cotillard, she was like, actually, I'm the evil one. And I just thought, why couldn't you have done that earlier? Because I want to see more screen time of you being evil. It's just that I always have this debate of who is the best female villain, because you go back to like Disney and stuff and you see like Disney characters being villain. Finally, we have a really intelligent film that looks amazing, that has the female at the top of the evil villainness. And I just wanted to see more of what they could do with it. Yeah. Because I just thought this, for me, that would have made it for me, because I really enjoy the female villain characters. But
she was essentially like, haha, it was me, and run.
Yeah, that's what I was frustrated at. I wanted her to stick around and just to be like, see what she could do.
That power and
she was smart, she was intelligent, she had the history, she had the amazing origins of how she became a villain, and then it was just like, oh, I'm running away now, like as you said, and I just wanted to see more of that. But yeah.
And what did we think of Bane then?
British accent.
I'd admit, there were times, throwing my hat into the big can't hear what he's saying debate, there were definitely times when I struggled to hear what he was saying.
Yeah.
Right. I thought a lot of the time, it was that effect you have when you maybe go and watch a musical theatre piece, and you're trying to listen to the words, and then you catch the end word, and that fills you in on the stuff they said.
Yes,
so there was quite a lot of that. But I don't feel I missed out on anything. It wasn't like... he wasn't stating real big plot points or anything. He was often just talking to someone or being angry. But I liked him. I mean, he's very imposing. I mean, Tom Hardy's great anyway. I mean, but you always... And I think, the other thing with the whole voicing is, as soon as you lose someone's lips, you have a problem in terms of seeing, because you lip read a lot anyway. But like I say, did it spoil it for me? Not at all, not a jot. I like the fact that he was revealed later on to have a really interesting... He was the one that did really benefit from the backstory.
See, I like that, the way they used the backstory there. That was good.
Slightly, because he was a rescue. All of a sudden, he was a saviour, and it was almost... Marion Cotillard's fault that he became this, this kind of villain and bitter person and henchman, really, basically, is what he ended up being. Yeah. It kind of diminished his power a bit. But
he looked like a henchman at the beginning.
Exactly, he did. Yeah,
and then you kind of think, but he's like the head of everything. It's like what we were saying earlier, that when she came on screen, you kind of thought, oh, you look a bit nasty. And then she kind of, you warmed to her a little bit. And then with him, you kind of think he looks like a massive henchman. Yeah. And then you kind of think, well, he's kind of in charge, so I'm going to go with it. And that's what I kind of enjoyed.
And he was still given that. He's just given the greatest moment in the trilogy where he gets to snap Batman in half. And it's
with that wrestling move.
I knew it was coming because I comic books and so on. But it was still a bit of a moment of, it's just a brave storyline and a brave thing to do, and then to have them come back from it, and that's all part of the timeline. Because I think that's where the timeline comes in. Because that would have been really stupid if it had been a week later and he's up running around and doing his stuff, and kind of. And as it was, but I thought he was great. I mean, what about you?
I enjoyed him. I thought he was. I thought it's nice to see after the Joker, who is essentially
pantomime
random.
Almost.
He is random. He's not a physically strong character. His power was that
his chaos.
He just absolutely had no plan. And it's something you can't cope with things with absolutely no order and no willingness to have order. Whereas what I really liked was that switch to have a villain who's both ultra logical and a tank, essentially, because he, someone who could just fight Batman like very equally, and it wasn't about outsmarting him and having a hostage waiting and all that kind of rubbish.
Didn't need it.
It was someone who could, like you say, literally like broke his back.
Yeah,
and
then,
I think later someone punched a vertebrae back in.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
right.
right. Yeah, just pop it out.
Quite,
a bit harsh.
Quite harsh. But I loved it. I love the voice. I like the whole sort of thing with a mask. It gave sort of an ambiguity to it that worked very well. I mean,
Darth Vader kind of thing going on there.
Yeah, and sort of where that sort of falls down is I thought like the first Spider-Man movie. I thought the bad thing about that movie was this immobile,
it was crazy.
Whole face mask, but you could see the eyes going, and he was so ordered, and he had this voice that was. I mean, there were bits when it was used sort of quite comically in a way, but there were other times where it's just an odd voice. It's quite, and having that sort of almost sort of cartoony voice for Bane, I found it made the character, especially a big imposing character, it made it made the guy quite unsettling.
Yeah,
and I just liked it. I think he gave the film, after the last one, he gave it a really
sharp focus,
rigid focus, and. You know, like I say, I mean, having someone who can break Batman's back as the villain, I think it's fantastic. And Tom Hardy's just, he's as good as Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I mean, get those two in a film and you're done. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to catch Magic Mike. Although the one good thing I can say about Magic Mike is it means for about 10 minutes. The people in my office weren't talking about 50 Shades of Grey.
Of course.
I work with
that's true.
With mainly women, and they were all quite impressed with Channing and his Tatums. But I'll be trying to catch up with Magic Mike over the next couple of days, and probably post sort of an individual review on the page as soon as possible if I can. It's a 9:15 screening though, so
past your bedtime.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it's got to be really.
You've got to
tempting.
really want to.
Anyway, moving on. So, available now on DVD and Blu-ray is Disney's John Carter. In case you were confused, this isn't a spin-off from ER, more's the pity, but an adaptation and amalgamation of a few of Edgar Rice Burroughs' epic sci-fi series, John Carter of Mars.
Who is that?
Our world is under attack, John Carter.
That don't look like a fair fight.
And Earth is next. Will you stay, fight for us?
Get on. John Carter fights for us! Soon we will seal the fate of this world. This might get dangerous. I did not cause this, but I will end it! Nothing must stand in our way. Let's see what he's capable of.
Now, this film reportedly cost around $300 million. I've written $3 million
got a bit confused.
in the notes.
I got confused.
And that would have been a very different film. But $300 million, Claire. Was it worth it?
I always start with I hate being in the middle of if a film's good or bad or something, but to be honest, this film had all the really good ingredients to make a great film. And we had Andrew Stanton, Finding Nemo and WALL-E and stuff, who's doing this film. You also had Michael, excuse if I don't pronounce it right, Giacchino, who's music from Lost, just a fantastic composer. Special effects just were outstanding. You've got some really interesting story from was it 1912 it was written?
Yeah, 100 years old.
So it's celebrating the century, and then I thought, I'm lost. I don't know what's going on.
See, the face that you are pulling now, Claire, is exactly
take a picture, put it up on the page.
What I was thinking halfway through this film. I sat there and there's like, he's a Civil War soldier who's transported to Mars and gets put into the middle of some kind of civil war that's going on there. And that should be quite awesome because they've spent a lot of money. There's flying things that look like the skiffs from the Return of the Jedi, and there's all sorts of different sized monsters. And he's not used to the gravity, so he's got superpowers.
He can jump. He can smack people. He's like a superhero on Mars. It's
incredible. Although
it's incredible.
He can smack people unless it's vital to the plot that he can't. Is what I did notice at points.
So some people he can't hit.
But anyway, this should be a really good film. It should be sort of like excessive running time. It's a big, big vistas, all that kind of stuff. But first of all, it's boring. It's incredibly boring.
What, because it's talky, or just because it's just dull?
Well, it's a mixture of talky and too much going on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes it
both ends of the spectrum.
It's a bit odd, isn't it? It's kind of like there's a lot happening, but it kind of. There's almost too much happening, like you don't care. And then, it's just so weak. It's a really bizarre film. There's a bit, there should be this climax of a battle where all these different forces meet, and you've got this really odd character, Mark Strong's playing, who's kind of like a shapeshifter, who they seem to be influencing the politics and the sort of fate of Mars by, and they pop up every millennia and sort of turn into doppelgangers of people, and they sort of shape everything that happens, and it's all to do with their sort of game. And you just kind of like thinking, what the hell's going on?
Sounds a bit confusing.
After watching, I just think I don't get it, and I feel really bad because I think is it me being really stupid? And
I thought I was being dumb.
Yeah.
That's not a good way for a film to make you feel, is it?
No.
See how,
especially when it's such a simple film.
Dark Knight Rises made us all feel really big and clever and weighty and really good, and this just made you feel like a twat.
It's just that I'm a massive sci-fi fan, and so with all the ingredients of it, of really good people behind it, who I'm a big fan of, and then just seeing this, like anything with aliens in, I'm gonna watch, and then with this, I was just really disappointed.
Yeah, it's
just
got like
really disappointed.
Mark Strong's in it, James
Chap from The Wire,
Dominic West's in it. There's a whole sort of host of recognisable faces, and they're all just spouting gib. Like that. There's that thing about Alec Guinness said, "Well, you can write this stuff, George, but you can't say it about the Star Wars script, or either him or Harrison Ford." And it's like that. It's just a constant. You're constantly just being battered by sort of sub-Dune style nonsense.
Yeah.
And then he's got like a six-legged dog that follows him around because it's funny.
That was like the Jar Jar Binks of the whole thing, wasn't it? It's kind of like it's trying to template off things like Avatar, Star Wars, and just someone going, "Oh, let's try and do something. Let's have a fun character. Let's do this," and it's just. It's like a poor man's every sci-fi film I've seen. You
can see our faces. We're genuinely confused by what we've
I know
seen. It's annoying.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but one thing I do know that kind of came across in a lot of the reviews of it, and it kind of echoes what Claire just said, that it comes off as a poor man's version of everything, and that's unfortunate because in many ways it invented all those tropes because it was written 100 years ago.
You're right.
So everyone read it and ripped it off. And unfortunately, it never got made before that, and you think all the bad things that come across as well, but also all the good things. But like you say, you're saying it comes across a bit of a mishmash of Star Wars and that and this and that because they all just ripped it off. But that's the way it works. And unfortunately, it's after its time. It's just too late. It's just missed the train, really.
And Taylor Kitsch is 0 for 2.
That's terrible. I mean, that Battleship and then followed by this. But he is in The Savages, which is coming out in a few weeks' time, Oliver Stone's new film.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which looks pretty good. Him and Aaron Johnson. It looks quite really excellent. But yeah, so maybe he does need one. He needs a pretty big movie because I think he actually went Gambit, which was rubbish. Then he did nothing. Then he came back with the double header.
Of course, he was Gambit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
See, well, I think the perfect review of John Carter is that someone who hasn't seen it, you need to have not seen it to have the clarity of mind to know how bad it is.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's just too confusing. And now the part of the show where we discuss any other films that we have seen in the past fortnight. Claire, what have you been watching?
I've been watching a 1991 classic.
Oh.
Psychological thriller. Joseph Rubin, Sleeping with the Enemy.
Oh,
brilliant.
I love it.
Absolutely fantastic. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's just about a woman who escapes from an abusive OCD husband from Cape Cod to Cedar Falls. She meets a teacher, and then he basically comes after her. I won't give out too many spoilers because I'm sure the 50 Shades of Grey people are itching to watch it alongside things like Single White Female.
Indeed.
What was it else? Pacific Heights. If you like that kind of film, then watch it, but I'm pretty sure everyone's seen it by now. It's probably on the GCSE.
If you like a good moustache,
it's a
film for you.
If you like a good
menacing
moustache.
Sweater. Brilliant.
I was thinking when I was watching it, what would happen if that was actually done now with things like technology and Twitter and stuff? It's like when I see a film back in the 90s, I think, how would that actually translate today?
Well, you just call the police, wouldn't you?
To give the story justice, I think it still stands as like a really freaky guy. You know, you get married to a freaky guy and you want to get out of it, but
he's a wrong one.
Yeah, maybe there's a remake in there somewhere.
I hope so.
Like Dead Calm. I love a bit of Dead Calm.
Dead Calm.
Yeah, see, that's great as well. Same kind of thing. Creepy guy in it, definitely.
Yeah, see, the thing is with Dead Calm, it's one of those films, it's on seemingly every day on ITV 2 or 3, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's a really odd film as well. It's quite it's got that real unsettling nature to it, whereas I think the thing about Sleeping with it's like watching Dirty Dancing, because it's just got these moments that are just you kind of, you're watching it and thinking, wow, someone filmed that and went, you know what, that'll do. This stands, you know, like, what was he said, why must you embarrass me, and all these great big hammy 90s, and it's better than Silence of the Lambs. So there we go.
Okay, well, I will cut that out. So I'll cut this bit out as well, actually, when I edit it, so that doesn't matter. I was away, I've been on holiday, so I haven't caught many films, but there was a fantastic movie channel on in the hotel in Greece, and so I did catch both Jumanji and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which are both excellent. Jumanji is brilliant, actually. I've always liked it, but haven't seen it for a good number of years, and it's really one of Robin Williams' best. It's really brilliant, and you know what? It still actually looks quite good. You know, it's very CG heavy, but it actually, apart from the big scenes, you know, it's quite, some of it's quite small and quite intricate, and it actually works quite well. Ferris Bueller's Day Off is very good. I also watched A Pursuit of Happiness. That's all right. It's Will Smith doing a bit of crying. It's a bit fluffy. But I was on holiday, see, Winter's Fate. I can't
stand that film.
But I was on holiday, so maybe I was in quite a different attitude. I was quite relaxed. It was just on of an afternoon. Yeah. It's very cutesy. But, you know, it's
about happiness, right?
It's about happiness with a Y. So, yeah, that was okay. But, yeah, apart from that, I'd say I've been a bit lax the last few weeks, but next week we'll catch up with a few, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, same here. I mean, one thing I've been watching is the Hollow Crown. The BBC have done sort of essentially the four Henry films. Henry V, not as good as I was hoping it would be. They missed a few scenes that I think are the key, the sort of the ambiguity to the character of Henry. But still brilliant. Still just about one of the best things you see on telly. And the Henry IV plots 1 and 2 were just amazing. And then last night I watched Awake, which is this amazing thriller in which Hayden Christensen.
Oh, I've seen that film.
Right.
Yep.
He has a heart operation, and he's still awake when they're doing the procedure, but paralysed, and he hears the people trying to kill him, and it's quite good. Yeah, actually, I really enjoyed it. It was good. You know, Channel 5 kind of. Should you watch a movie? Oh, it's 9 o'clock. Yeah, it's only an hour. Terrence Howard's in it. He's always brilliant. He's one of the great sort of actors of our age, I think. He's just in terrible films. He's one of those guys who doesn't know how to pick films.
He was in Red Tails.
Strangely Oedipal film, though. If you watch it, you'll get what I mean. It twisted in a way that I really didn't expect it to twist, and it's quite a nasty little film as well. So I quite enjoyed that. I'm recommending a Hayden Christensen movie.
I know, who saw that coming?
Wow. But anyway, thank you for listening to 24 Lives Per Second, Guernsey's only film podcast. Don't forget to visit, like and share the podcast and the Guernsey Film Info page on Facebook, and let us know via the comments if you agree or disagree with anything you've heard. Judging by the response so far, people are amazingly ambivalent. Anyway, next time around, we will be reviewing Seth MacFarlane's Ted, as well as any new Blu-ray and DVD releases. Thank you very much for listening.